Welcome to Training Talk. I'm Jeffro Trainer. Welcome to our show where we just talk about training. We're just going to talk about training, and we're going to invite debate on the big things surrounding training. And this is really inspired by the fact that I've always talked to people about training, and I've always approached it from a kind of viewpoint that if you've been training more than a couple of years and you've got results, you have got a valid viewpoint, you have a right to join the debate, and you might be right. Who knows? A lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show is open for debate. There are principles or blah, blah, blah. There's loads of pseudoscience and experts in training right now and giving it the big I am. This isn't the show for you. This is the show for people who want to digress and just talk about training. It's something we're passionate about. Let's start talking about it. So this week's starting point is going to be deadlifts, the deadlift debate. So in terms of the deadlift debate, and sort of the things I want to flag up in my experience with the deadlift is A, what's your favourite version? And when we talk about different versions of deadlift, let's have a little look now at some of the versions that I consider to be important. So let's have a look. Let's start with, when we talk about deadlift, this is basically what we're talking about, the kind of textbook. So we're looking at full deadlift all the way up, all the way down. So you stand up and you go down. Yeah, simple powerlifting exercise. People go really, really heavy. World's Strongest Man. It's one of the main exercises we've all seen from when we were really young, watching that sort of stuff. Pick up as much weight as you can, stand up, put it all the way down. So that's your full deadlift. So the debate aspect that I want to throw out, because there's always a couple of camps on this one. So when it comes to this specific movement of picking your bar up off the ground and then putting it back down on the ground, right? If you're a massive fan of the deadlift, and if you are talking about the deadlift as like, got a deadlift, how many weeks of your training year, looking at say 45 weeks, are you performing the full deadlift? My point is this: a lot of people who will kind of bang on about the deadlift and how important it is, they're not doing it every week, all right? They're massive fans of the deadlift, right? So they talk about it, particularly a lot of coaches, they'll go deadlifts, etc., okay? So one camp are always singing the praise of the deadlift. There's a second camp that I'm more used to, where they'll kind of think of the deadlift as in a specific role to play at stages of a person's training, but kind of has a sell-by date. So when you're in your late 40s and your 50s, are you picking up that bar? Are you doing full deadlifts? So in terms of the deadlift debate, if you're a kind of pro deadlift person, so if you're sitting there and you're a lover of the deadlift, my question to you is, are you doing the deadlift every week? And what has the deadlift done for you? Right? So if you're in that camp, my counter argument is, well, what are you doing with the deadlift? What has it done for you? The other side of the coin is always people who are over 40, train a long time, and maybe feel that there's a place for it, but they don't do it. So I'm going to put my hands up. I don't do a lot of full deadlifts. I don't coach a lot of full deadlifts. I mean, the whole reason why I'm talking about the full deadlifts today is for two things. I've, had to actually include full deadlifts in a program for a female client, just to give them that strength kind of section of their training. So that's why deadlift's been on my mind. The second reason why is another client saying to me, Jeff, you like stiff leg deadlifts, don't you? So that moves us on to the second section of the deadlift, which is the stiff leg deadlift. Now, I am obsessed with the stiff leg deadlift. I'm obsessed with hamstrings. I'm obsessed with hip extension. So, this is why I can sit on the fence with the full deadlift and kind of look at both angles, both camps, if you like. I'm always coaching the stiff leg deadlift, so I can obviously very pro stiff leg deadlift. I feel that even if you have a back problem, you can potentially do a safe kind of stiff leg version. So let's look at the stiff leg deadlift. Yep, so up and down, bars sliding up and down your thighs, keeping your chest up, hopefully engaging your hamstrings. There's a nice version where you can keep your toes up as well, which really gets the hamstrings. I've coached this 1,000 times, so I won't bore you with what I have to do when I'm coaching it, the cues. But hopefully you're a fan of this movement. And I don't think, for me, the stiff leg deadlift, there is no debate. It's a great movement. That said, maybe you've got something to say about the stiff leg deadlift. Maybe you feel that I'm missing a trick by not doing enough full deadlifts. So that's the deadlift debate. I'd love to hear your views. There's a side issue to the deadlift now. It seems to have had a resurgence, particularly online and social media, where deadlifts, and ladies, all right, lady training. Last gym I was working at, they got in the platforms, and there was a lot of female deadlifting going on. Must admit, big fan. Yeah, big fan of that, intensive work. Has it got you fantastic results? So if you're watching this and you're a lady, or if you've got a kind of, if you know someone who's got fantastic results from full deadlifts, let us know. Join the debate. Let us know if I'm out of my mind, even questioning the full deadlift. But that's your kind of deadlift debate, in our exercise section. The sharp end. So one section that I definitely want to start making regular for us to talk about, because I'm kind of involved in this stuff every day, and most of the people that I talk to a lot, and hopefully you, are also involved in it every day. You're training all the time. And in our worlds, we sometimes forget, when people just start, the type of stuff they want to know, it doesn't even cross our minds. We're just training all the time, or we're kind of coaching all the time. Let's run past some of these points. I'd like your thoughts on it. Helps us think about stuff, and hopefully helps out those people who want a bit of help, and let's throw it out there. So the first point, I was asked this quite a long time ago by a client, it always stuck in my head, is we've been training a few weeks, he's starting to get some good results, get some strength and stuff. He was over kind of 50, he's had some medical stuff. And he said to me, is any of this bankable? Right? Is this bankable? And by that, obviously, he means how much of this that we're doing together is going to stay with me once I stop. All right? Now, outside of kind of fitness or strength training, that's an important question. you know, but that is an interesting question. It's how much of this is bankable. So maybe you're training like a maniac right now, or, you know, maybe you're at peak fitness. Maybe you are at your best right now. If you stop completely, how much of it will stick? You know, and when you're training a client, or if you're helping out a friend or training yourself, how much of it is gonna stay with you beyond when you stop? Now, this to me is this is a question that, if I'm honest, doesn't even cross my mind, which we'll kind of go into as in, you know, our reasons for training, but certainly how much of it is bankable? How much of what I'm doing for this client, or when we train someone who's not in it for the long haul, what are they taking away? What are they kind of going to do if they stop? So is it bankable? You know, I'm not going to kind of sit here and, you know, kind of preach about what my main opinion is. I'm just going to throw it out there so you think, is it bankable? How much of it's bankable? What type of training? E.g., if you're a boxer and you compete at boxing for 5 years, as opposed to if you join a gym and do bodybuilding for 5 years, or if you join a running club and run for 5 years, at the end of that 5 years, how much had you banked, right? So I think that's an important question for us to be thinking about when we train. Certainly when we train people who maybe aren't in it for the long haul. What's the most important training? What is bankable? What isn't bankable? So that's that kind of first point. I think hopefully you find quite interesting that I have to come across. Another one that quite a recent one, but again, this is said client who I know from a kind of combat sports, kind of a kind of, what would you call it, a kind of colleague who I train alongside in combat, who recently started doing the weights and conditioning, and he said, you know, well, I'd say, how did the workout feel? And I go, well, how should it feel? How should it feel? And this always, I find this really interesting when I talk to clients, because when they say, you know, how should it feel? That's one extreme. That's one client saying, how should I feel after this? You know, should I feel like exhausted, like because I don't feel exhausted, etc. That's one end of the scale. At the other end of the scale, I've got a client who isn't a sports person as such, and he starts feeling pain, right? So again, don't know what your thoughts are watching, whether that's come up for you, or what do you feel when you train physically? What should you feel? You know, so those are being at the sharp end of training, and we all are. If you're training all the time, I consider you to be someone who is at the sharp end, putting the work in, getting the responses, getting the feeling sharp. It's tough. So they're my thoughts for this week from that kind of sharp end kind of training. Fitness and sports, or as I like to call, mind the gap. So this is a section that I'm really passionate about. Hopefully it will set your fires burning as well. And ask the question that I like to ask is that, why is there such a gap between the fitness industry and the real world of sports coaching, sports training? And in my opinion, and you might disagree, but the two worlds, you know, are a world apart. And obviously strength and conditioning really helps. Yeah, so any S&C kind of coaches out there, and you know, British weightlifting, and people who, you know, even a lot of high level kind of CrossFit people will obviously say that the gap's being filled. From my perspective, I've got a simple question to ask on this subject, which is, are you an athlete? So you watching this right now, are you an athlete? Do you consider yourself to be an athlete? Or are you a coach? Right? Because in sport, there's an athlete and there's a coach. In the fitness industry, there's clients, there's kind of specialists, there's blah, 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 customers, gym users. So I want to spark the debate with fitness and sports and start to touch on it. Hopefully it's something we can build on week in, week out, on this kind of digest and debate on whether there is a gap, whether it's being closed, or if the gap is kind of becoming bigger. This will obviously lead on to maybe us talking about what we need to improve in our industry. If you're a coach and you're watching this, as coaches, are we creating athletes? Are we talking to people like athletes, or are we treating them like clients and customers? So, you know, what is an athlete? Regular training, good lifestyle, you know, following a system or a structure year round is what I'd think of. That's an athlete. Maybe you think differently. Maybe, you know, you think that an athlete is a specific sports person and a client is, you know, my take on it. I've got strong opinions, and I think that we are missing athletes as an industry now. When I say to a client, you know, you're the athlete, they're not pumped. They're like, well, almost like if I was an athlete, I would, you know, would an athlete need a personal trainer? So my strong opinion on kind of the gap is that I think that the fitness industry is getting more confusing, more filled with jargon. It's not clear at all. And I think we need to start looking to the world of sports and getting it closer to that gap. Anyway, so hopefully you've enjoyed today's show. I'm going to round it off, try and keep it short and sweet. Next week, next ep, I'll try and cover some bent over rows. Okay. And I'll probably try and hit on quite a big question of, have we sold out the role of coach? So is the coach, have we sold out? Have we sold out as coaches? Have we kind of sold out? Has we devalued the role of coach? Okay, so anyone can be a coach now. I mean, what is a coach? That leads on from my question, which was, where are the athletes? Are you an athlete? So let's come back next week. Let's hit some more exercises. Let's hit some more of the sharp end. Let's go deep into our fitness and sports. Let's build on this. I'd love to hear from you. So if you've watched it, thanks for watching. Hit me in the comments. Give us some feedback, positive or negative. Have a rant. If you're like me and you're an angry coach, throw some stuff down the bottom. You know, we need to start venting as a community, and, you know, hopefully just get back to talking about training. All the nonsense, you know, all the kind of sales stuff. That's for another channel. So thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next week.